too close. What the pit bull, Honey, didn't know, Max the cat had long since realized the puppy had grown into a muscular dog who could easily take him down if she felt inclined. Honey's temperament prevented her from hurting the cat, yet Max hadn't managed to last this long by using up his 9 lives, being overly cocky. "I think Max is going to miss Honey," Danielle said as she watched the pair. A moment later, Max curled up by her feet while Honey made her way around the table, greeting everyone with a wet nose before settling between Walt and Chris on the floor under the table. "Not sure about that, but Sadie will," Walt said, referring to the golden retriever who lived across the street. "Those two have become quite the pair, always running around in the side yard or on the beach together." "I think it was those bones they dug up next door," Chris said with a snort. "Partners in crime, those 2 dogs." The bones in question were the remains of a couple who had been murdered in the 40s and had been put to rest almost 6 months earlier, after Honey and Sadie's discovery. "I feel a little guilty having you move out before your house is done," Danielle said. "Aw, don't be silly." Chris gave a shrug as he picked up his coffee cup. "It's going to be a few weeks before I can move into the new house, so I can deal with staying at the foundation office until then. Heather tells me the bed she ordered is being delivered this afternoon. Anyway, I think I'm starting to annoy Walt." "No more than usual," Walt smiled and sipped his coffee. "Plus," Chris continued, "you guys are going to need the room for all those Hollywood people. It's going to be like having the B&B up and running again." "Yes, but this time Joanne will be doing most of the cooking," Walt said. "I'm playing Lady of the Manor," Danielle grinned. Before Chris could respond, Honey jumped up from her place under the kitchen table and began to bark. The 3 turned toward the kitchen door leading to the side yard to see what had set the dog off, and to their surprise, they found a young man standing in the kitchen by the closed door. He looked to be in his early 20s. While it was shocking to find a stranger standing in the room with them, one they hadn't heard come in, the vibes he gave off were anything but threatening. "I know that door was locked," Danielle muttered, her eyes wide as she stared at the stranger. Neither Walt nor Chris had gotten up from the table, but instead remained in their chairs, turned toward the intruder. The man glanced around the kitchen curiously, unfazed by the pit bull still barking at him. After taking full inventory of the room, he looked to Danielle and smiled. "I didn't come through the door." He then reconsidered his words and laughed, adding, "On second thought, I suppose I did." The next moment, the man abruptly took several steps backwards, disappearing through the door, and then in the next moment, he reappeared. "See," he said cheerfully. "The lock was no problem." "You're a ghost," Danielle blurted. Honey, now silent, sat down and stared at the ghost, cocking her head from side to side, while Max looked up, annoyed, his sleep having been disturbed by the canine barking. "And you can see me," the stranger said, sounding surprised. He looked from Danielle to Walt and Chris. "And you can too. I hadn't expected that." He walked over to the empty chair and sat down, which, fortunately for him, had already been pulled out from the table, since he had not yet learned to harness energy and move objects. "Who are you, and why are you here?" Walt demanded. Instead of answering the question, the ghost looked from Walt to Chris, then Danielle, and back to Walt. "I have heard there are people like you who can see ghosts, but I've never encountered one before. Are all of you alive? I know Walt Marlow is alive." He turned to Danielle and added, "And I just assumed you're Danielle Marlow, but maybe I was wrong. Maybe you are someone else. A dead someone." He turned to Chris and asked, "Are you a ghost?" "No, we're all alive. But how do you know who I am?" Walt asked. "You're the reason I'm here."